Streetwise alien girls wanted to eat the human. They never expected what happened next. HFY. The city of Zorath was alive with movement, neon lights, and the faint hum of flying vehicles. Towering skyscrapers stretched into the dark sky, their surfaces covered in flickering advertisements and alien symbols. The streets below twisted like a maze, narrow alleyways winding between marketplaces, repair shops, and crumbling buildings. The city was dangerous, especially for someone like Jace, a lone human scavenger, small, seemingly weak, and very out of place. He moved quickly and quietly, his eyes scanning the crowd. The humans were rare here, and even rarer were ones who survived. Jace had learned to stay alert, to blend in when necessary, and to always notice things others overlooked. Tonight, however, his focus was not on blending. His focus was on surviving. From the shadows, a trio of figures watched him. They were girls, but unlike any humans Jace had seen. Sierra, the tallest, had shimmering blue skin that reflected the neon lights above. Her eyes were golden, sharp, and calculating. Kylan, smaller but no less fierce, moved with a quiet grace, her tail twitching as she watched Jace. Vera, the last of the trio, had deep purple markings across her body and a low, menacing growl that hinted at her deadly instincts. They had been hunting him for hours, following him through the alleys and side streets. To them, humans were prey, weak, fragile, and predictable. Their plan was simple: catch him, intimidate him, and perhaps make a meal of him. But what they did not know was that humans were clever. Jace had survived countless dangerous situations back on Earth, and even here, in a city full of alien predators, he knew how to think fast and act faster. He ducked into a narrow alley, pressing himself against the cold, rough wall. The neon glow from above barely lit the path ahead, but it was enough for him to see where he was going. From the corner of his eye, he spotted movement, 3 shadows sliding along the walls, silent, deliberate, and patient. The girls had split up, trying to surround him. Jace's heart pounded, not from fear but from focus. He understood that running blindly would not help. Humans survived by thinking, observing, and making the most of every opportunity. He noticed a loose crate near his feet, and without hesitation, kicked it lightly. It rolled across the alley, clattering loudly against the metal floor. Immediately, the shadows shifted as the girls investigated the sound. Jace used the distraction to slip into a side passage, barely making a sound. Sierra's sharp voice echoed through the alley. "He is clever, but not clever enough," Kylan hissed in agreement. "We will find him." "No human can escape us forever." Vera growled low, her ears twitching as she tried to sense Jace's position. But they had underestimated the human. The alley twisted and turned, narrowing in places and opening into larger chambers filled with abandoned crates, broken machinery, and flickering lights. Jace had memorized the layout of this sector during his earlier scavenging trips. He moved like a shadow, pressing against walls, ducking under pipes, and slipping through gaps too small for the aliens to follow easily. As he ran, he recalled the lessons his father had taught him on Earth. Always use your surroundings, notice patterns, and never assume strength alone will win. Jace used the pipes above to swing over small obstacles, used crates as cover, and even manipulated loose wires to create small distractions. Each move was deliberate, forcing the girls to react rather than act. Sierra reached the larger chamber first, her golden eyes scanning quickly. "He can't be far," she hissed. Kylan moved in from the opposite side, her tail flicking with impatience. Vera followed silently, listening to every sound, her muscles tense and ready. They were skilled hunters, but humans were not predictable. Jace reached a broken doorway leading to a lower level. Without hesitation, he slipped through, landing softly on the cold metal floor below. The tunnels here were quieter, older, and less traveled. Water dripped from the ceiling, and the faint hum of machinery echoed through the passages. He could hear the girls above, their frustrated voices carrying down. He paused, listening. Their movements were methodical but predictable. They relied on their senses of sight, smell, and hearing, assuming that a human could not manipulate the environment as they could. Jace smiled slightly. Humans were underestimated because others assumed humans were weak, but humans had one thing that many creatures did not: ingenuity. He spotted an old maintenance drone in the corner, inactive and covered in dust. An idea sparked in his mind. Jace reached into his pack and pulled out a small metallic cube, a device he had scavenged weeks ago. He pressed a button and the cube hummed softly. Carefully, he attached it to the drone. Lights flickered on, gears whirred, and suddenly the drone sprang to life, rolling across the floor with a loud metallic clatter. The noise drew the girls' attention immediately. Sierra hissed in frustration, her tail lashing. Kylan and Vera moved toward the sound, trying to locate the human. But Jace was already moving, slipping down a narrow side passage that the drone could not reach. He used the chaos to put distance between himself and the hunters. The tunnels twisted, some passages collapsing under old machinery, others leading to dead ends. Jace navigated with careful precision, ducking under pipes, climbing over debris, and slipping through narrow gaps. The girls followed, but the tight spaces slowed them down. Jace noticed every hesitation, every misstep. They were powerful, fast, and skilled, but he had learned to use the environment to his advantage. Finally, he reached a chamber filled with abandoned machinery and crates. It was larger, with multiple levels and broken catwalks. He paused, catching his breath and scanning for options. He saw an overhead maintenance hatch, partially open. It was risky, but it could give him a vantage point and a way to move above the girls. Humans were clever, yes, but they were also brave when survival demanded it. Jace leapt, grabbing the edge of the hatch and pulling himself upward. The metal groaned under his weight, but it held. He crawled along the beams, careful not to make a sound, moving above the alien girls. From this height he could see them moving below, frustrated, confused, and increasingly cautious. He smiled quietly. Humans survived because they adapted. They thought differently. While the girls relied on strength, speed, and senses, Jace relied on his mind. Every obstacle was an opportunity, every corner a chance to outsmart the hunters. They assumed control, but he was already several steps ahead. He moved along the beams, slipping quietly to another part of the chamber. Below, the girls circled, trying to anticipate his moves. But he had learned that humans had one advantage over almost every predator in the galaxy: unpredictability. No patterns, no predictable behavior, only constant adaptation. Jace leapt down from the beams, landing silently behind a stack of crates. The girls froze, realizing for the first time that he had changed his position entirely. Sierra hissed in frustration, Kylan growled, and Vera's ears twitched. They had underestimated him, and now they were paying the price. For the first time, the girls hesitated. They had assumed humans were weak, easily caught, and simple to track. But this one human had shown them otherwise. His quick thinking, use of the environment, and calm precision had turned the hunt into a challenge they did not expect. Jace paused in the shadows, watching them regroup. He knew the night was far from over, but he also knew something important. Humans survived because they refused to be predictable. They adapted, learned, and outsmarted those who underestimated them. As he prepared to move again, he felt a strange sense of pride. He was not the strongest, the fastest, or the deadliest, but he was clever. He had survived because he had used his mind, his surroundings, and his instincts. The alien girls were formidable, but they had not accounted for the one thing that made humans dangerous: their intelligence. The city of Zorath stretched before him, full of shadows, secrets, and opportunities, and Jace was ready to use every one of them. Tonight he was not just running. Tonight he was proving something to the galaxy. Humans were clever, resourceful, and impossible to underestimate. As the first flickers of light began to shine through the tunnels, Jace moved forward, ready for whatever came next. The hunt was only beginning, but he had already won the first victory. The alien girls would soon learn that humans were not prey, they were survivors. And survivors, when underestimated, could change the game entirely. The sun dipped low behind the jagged skyline of Zorath, casting long shadows over the neon-glowing streets. Jace moved carefully, his eyes scanning every alley, every doorway, every window. He knew the girls were still out there. The three aliens, Sierra, Kylan, and Vera, had underestimated him once, and he was not about to let them try again. Their laughter still echoed in his ears from earlier, cruel and mocking. But Jace had learned quickly, being human did not mean being weak. It meant using his mind, using his speed, and staying alive no matter what. He ducked into a narrow side street and pressed himself against the wall, his back to the cold metal. The city smelled of smoke, oil, and something he could not name, a sharp alien scent that always made his nose twitch. From the shadows he saw movement, small, quick, and deliberate. The three girls were searching, their eyes scanning, their tails swishing with impatience. Sierra, the tallest, moved first, her long fingers brushing over crates and debris. Kylan followed, scanning the alleyways with her large, golden eyes, and Vera brought up the rear, her ears twitching at every faint sound. Jace held his breath. He had only seconds. The first mistake the girls had made was assuming that being faster than him meant they were in control. He was slow, but careful. Humans were known for endurance, for thinking in ways that others could not predict. He took a small pebble from the ground, feeling its rough surface in his hand. He tossed it lightly toward a pile of broken crates across the street. It clattered loudly, and all three girls turned instantly, hissing at the sound. Jace allowed himself a small smile. One step ahead. He moved like a shadow, sticking to walls, slipping into corners, and always keeping the girls in sight. The streets of Zorath were perfect for hiding. Pipes overhead, small doors, alleyways that twisted and turned unexpectedly. Jace had memorized a route the girls would never predict. His plan was simple: survive long enough to get out of their immediate reach and then find a way to turn the tables. Sierra's voice cut through the air, sharp and commanding. "Stop playing, he can't be far." "He knows this city, but he will make a mistake." Kylan laughed, a short, sharp sound that echoed off the walls. "Mistake or not, I will enjoy catching him. Humans are funny, thinking they are clever." Vera's low growl warned that she had already sensed Jace nearby. He could feel her attention brushing against his skin like an invisible wind. Jace ran. Not straight. He zigzagged, changing direction every few steps, jumping over pipes and fallen beams. His heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of outsmarting creatures that thought they had the upper hand. He remembered what his father had told him years ago, in a quiet human village far from this city. You survive by noticing what others do not. They think they see everything, but they always miss something. Ahead, he saw an old service shaft leading into the lower levels of the city. It was small, barely wide enough for him to crawl, but he knew the girls would not follow him there easily. He dropped down quickly, dust rising around him as he landed softly on the metallic floor. The sound of running water echoed through the tunnels, along with distant clanking and the faint hum of the city above. He moved cautiously, each step measured, each breath controlled. Behind him, the girls were not far. Sierra had already realized he had escaped the streets and shouted for the others to split up. Kylan darted toward the side entrance of the tunnel, Vera moving with silent precision. Jace paused, pressing himself against the wall again. His mind raced. He needed a plan. If he ran blindly, he might survive a few minutes, but humans survived longer when they used their brains. He looked around. Pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping water. Old control panels lined the walls. There was a maintenance drone, silent and powered down on a nearby ledge. An idea sparked. Jace pulled a small, metallic cube from his pocket, a scavenger's tool he had found weeks ago. He pressed it and it hummed softly, vibrating in his hand. He tossed it toward the drone. The device clicked into the machine, turning the inactive drone on. Lights flashed, gears whirred, and the drone whizzed down the tunnel, bumping into the walls with a loud metallic crash. The noise echoed, bouncing off the walls, drawing attention. Sierra hissed and glared, realizing immediately that Jace had set a trap. Kylan and Vera were momentarily distracted, trying to locate the source of the noise. Jace seized the opportunity. He dashed down a side passage, using the chaos to put as much distance as possible between himself and the girls. His lungs burned, but he did not slow down. Every corner, every turn, every shadow could hide either danger or opportunity. And Jace intended to use every one of them. Minutes passed, or maybe hours, he could not tell. Time lost all meaning in the tunnels, and Jace kept moving, following a route only he could predict. Eventually, he reached a part of the city almost completely abandoned. Rusting machinery, broken lights, and the faint smell of old fuel. Here, he could catch his breath. He leaned against a wall, feeling the cool metal under his hands, and allowed himself a moment to think. The girls were not far behind. He could hear their movements, subtle but unmistakable. Sierra's voice echoed in the tunnels, frustrated. "He is too careful, he will not make the same mistakes twice." Kylan laughed nervously. "Then we will make the mistakes for him?" Vera's tail lashed the floor, creating a rhythm that was both threatening and tense. Jace knew they were skilled hunters, but skill alone did not win the game. He glanced around, searching for an advantage. Then he spotted a large maintenance hatch above him, partially open. If he could climb up there, he might be able to move across the overhead pipes and drop down behind the girls, turning the hunt in his favor. Humans were not the strongest beings in the galaxy, but they were clever, adaptable, and daring when survival demanded it. Jace leapt, grabbing the edge of the hatch and pulling himself upward. The metal creaked under his weight, but it held. Slowly, he climbed into the shadows above. From this vantage point, he could see the girls moving below, searching with frustration growing in every motion. They were skilled, but predictable in their confidence. Jace smirked quietly. Sometimes being underestimated was the greatest advantage. He crawled along the pipes, careful to make no sound, following a route that would let him strike if necessary. For a moment, he considered running completely away from the city, leaving the girls to return to their streets in defeat. But something inside him, the part of humans that refused to be just prey, wanted more than survival. He wanted them to understand that humans were clever, adaptable, and not to be underestimated. Finally, he dropped down silently behind Vera, careful to land without making a sound. The girls froze, spinning around in alarm. Jace's eyes met theirs, calm, steady, and full of determination. He held up his hands not in surrender but in control. The tables had turned, if only slightly, and the girls realized that the game had changed. Sierra's tail twitched and she hissed softly. "Impossible," Kylan blinked, momentarily stunned. Vera growled, realizing that this human was no ordinary prey. He was something else entirely, something unpredictable. Jace stood tall, catching his breath, ready for whatever move they made next. And for the first time, the girls understood a simple truth. Humans survived not because they were strongest, fastest, or deadliest, but because they thought in ways no one else expected. And Jace intended to prove that tonight, in the twisting, shadowed tunnels of Zorath, humanity was not prey. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The tunnels beneath Zorath were alive with echoes of movement, metallic clangs, and the distant hum of the city above. Jace crouched behind a stack of rusted machinery, watching the alien girls below. Sierra, Kylan, and Vera were more cautious now, their previous confidence replaced by tension. Every glance they threw, every hiss and flick of their tails, told him that they were realizing humans were more than fragile prey. He studied them carefully. Sierra's eyes darted constantly, sharp and calculating. Kylan seemed less sure, her usual swagger replaced by nervous glances. Vera, the quietest, moved with a new sense of wariness, her ears rotating to catch even the faintest sounds. Jace had only one goal in mind: stay alive, outsmart them, and turn the hunt into a lesson they would never forget. Humans may not have claws or fangs, but they had ingenuity, courage, and the ability to adapt. He took a deep breath, counting to 3. Then he acted. With careful precision, Jace flipped a small panel on the floor, releasing a cloud of fine dust and sparks. The sudden distraction caused all 3 girls to spin, swiping at the air as the sparks illuminated their glowing eyes. Jace did not hesitate. He ran along the side, ducking under hanging pipes and sliding through narrow gaps. The tunnels were his advantage. He had memorized their twists and turns during his earlier chase, and he used every corner to confuse his pursuers. Sierra hissed in frustration. "He's using the tunnels. He knows every corner." Kylan's tail lashed against the wall as she tried to intercept him. "Don't let him escape." Vera's low growl echoed through the metal passage, a warning that she had learned to trust her instincts. But instincts alone could not match human cleverness. Jace reached a fork in the tunnel. To his left, a maintenance passage that led to the abandoned sectors of the city. To his right, a tight crawl space overgrown with old wiring and broken panels. He paused only for a moment. Then, with a quick glance back, he darted into the tighter crawl space, forcing the girls to follow. Their longer bodies were slower, their movements less flexible. For the first time, he saw hesitation flash in Sierra's eyes. The human was moving unpredictably. The crawl space narrowed even further, forcing Jace to duck low and move sideways. He could hear the girls behind him, their frustrated hisses mixing with the scrape of metal and their heavy footfalls. He pressed himself against the wall at one corner and waited. When they approached, he pushed a loose panel, sending a small cascade of wires and debris clattering down. The girls leapt back instinctively, giving him a few precious seconds. Jace sprinted forward, slipping through another gap and landing on the metal floor of a larger chamber. This part of the city was different. Abandoned factories stretched for hundreds of meters, filled with broken machinery, dusty conveyor belts, and flickering lights. The space was vast, but it offered opportunities. Jace knew he could move faster here than the girls could maneuver. He sprinted across the factory floor, leaping over overturned crates and ducking under dangling cables. The sound of his own footsteps echoed loudly, but he used it to his advantage, letting the girls focus on the noise rather than his actual position. Sierra's frustration grew. "Stop hiding and fight like a prey. This is ridiculous," she snapped. Kylan tried to circle around, hoping to trap him, but Jace anticipated it. He slipped through a small side door that led to a catwalk above the factory floor. From this height, he could see the girls below, trying to regroup and plan their next move. Humans had a strange habit. They never gave up even when cornered. That resilience was something the girls could not predict. Jace paused on the catwalk, scanning the room. He spotted an old control panel with blinking lights and levers. If he could trigger something, he might create another distraction, something that could give him a permanent advantage. With careful hands, he flipped a lever, causing the conveyor belts below to start moving. Sparks flew as old machinery came to life, sending crates sliding and falling. The girls froze, their eyes wide in surprise. "Humans are insane," Vera muttered under her breath, but even she could not hide her awe. The room became chaos. Crates tumbled, wires sparked, and the floor shook as the conveyor belts rattled. Jace moved quickly, jumping down from the catwalk and dashing between the obstacles. The girls struggled to keep up, their movements slowed by the sudden hazards. Jace's heart pounded, but he felt a surge of exhilaration. He was not just running, he was controlling the environment, turning the city itself into an ally. The alien girls may have had strength and agility, but humans had something else: creativity under pressure. Every step he took, every move he made, forced the girls to react rather than act. They were no longer the hunters, they were being outsmarted. Sierra growled and lunged at him, but Jace dodged, ducking under a swinging metal beam. Kylan tried to trap him near a stack of crates, but he leapt over it, landing silently on the other side. Vera circled, looking for a weak point, but Jace anticipated her pattern and moved unpredictably. The more they chased, the more their frustration grew, and the more Jace saw the truth. They had underestimated humans. He ran toward a massive, rusted door at the end of the factory, hoping it would lead him to the lower service tunnels. The girls followed more cautiously now, but still determined. Jace reached the door, heaved it open, and slipped inside, the darkness swallowing him. The girls hesitated, the threshold unfamiliar and narrow. Sierra growled, but she knew entering meant risk. They followed one by one, their confidence fading with each step. Inside the narrow tunnel, Jace had a new idea. He noticed a series of old maintenance panels along the wall, each connected to the city's outdated alarm system. A few quick taps, a flick here and there, and alarms blared throughout the abandoned sectors. Lights flashed, warning signals rang, and a distant mechanical roar echoed through the tunnels. The girls froze, momentarily disoriented. The human was not just surviving, he was controlling the environment. Jace did not stop to admire his work. He sprinted forward, slipping through a gap in the tunnel that led to an open courtyard. The night air hit him, carrying the smells of metal, oil, and alien vegetation. Above, the neon lights of Zorath flickered, reflecting off the puddles scattered across the ground. He moved quickly, ducking behind a stack of crates and catching his breath. From his hiding place, he watched the girls regroup outside the tunnel. Sierra's tail lashed furiously, and Kylan muttered something he could not understand. Vera's ears twitched as she scanned for him, but Jace had already disappeared from sight. He had created distance, but more importantly, he had created doubt. The alien girls were no longer certain they could predict him. They were learning that humans could be clever, resourceful, and fearless in the face of danger. Jace smiled to himself. This was only the beginning. The night was far from over, and the city offered countless ways to turn the hunt in his favor. He had learned one crucial thing. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to be predictable. Every step, every action, every decision was a test, and he intended to pass it. The girls were determined, but they were beginning to realize that hunting a human was not simple. Their prey was unpredictable, clever, and relentless. They had thought they were the hunters, but Jace had proven that humans were capable of more than raw strength. They had strategy, endurance, and the willingness to take risks that others would not. The courtyard offered more possibilities. Rusted machinery, broken vehicles, and abandoned structures created natural obstacles and cover. Jace moved cautiously, using the shadows to his advantage. Every so often, he glanced back to see the girls regrouping, frustrated but still determined. He knew they would not give up easily, but he also knew that they had already underestimated him once, and that mistake would cost them. As he navigated through the courtyard, he found a small network of pipes running along the walls. With careful timing, he leapt from one to another, using them as a path above the girls' heads. From this vantage point, he could see them moving below, searching, confused, and increasingly cautious. Jace felt a surge of confidence. Humans were adaptable, and he had proven it tonight. The alien girls were formidable, but they had underestimated one simple truth. Humans never stopped learning. Every mistake, every encounter, every challenge was an opportunity to grow stronger, faster, and smarter. Jace had survived countless dangers in his life, but tonight had proven something more. He was not just surviving. He was outsmarting, outmaneuvering, and outlasting those who thought they were superior. The night stretched on, the city alive with lights, sounds, and shadows. Jace continued moving, always thinking, always planning, always one step ahead. The girls were still chasing, but the hunt had changed. No longer was he the prey. He was the human who refused to be caught, the human who turned every corner, every tunnel, every alley into an advantage. And as the first hint of dawn touched the neon skyline, Jace realized something important. The galaxy underestimated humans. They did not understand human resilience, intelligence, or determination. But tonight, he had shown them a glimpse of what humans were capable of. The alien girls would not forget this night, not the cleverness, not the daring, not the courage. And humans, in their quiet, underestimated way, had once again proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. Dawn crept over the skyline of Zorath, painting the city with pale, cold light. Neon signs flickered weakly, struggling to stay alive as the first rays of the sun hit the streets. Jace crouched behind a stack of broken crates, his chest heaving as he caught his breath. The night had been long, filled with twists, dangers, and close calls. But he was still alive, and the alien girls were still searching. He had learned much in the last few hours. The girls were clever, coordinated, and relentless. Yet they had underestimated him, the human who could see patterns where others saw chaos, who could use obstacles as tools, and who could think faster than they could act. Now it was time to turn the final corner, to end the chase in a way that would leave no doubt about what humans were capable of. He moved silently across the courtyard, every step deliberate. The air smelled of ozone and burning metal, a mix of old sparks and recent chaos. He paused, scanning the ruined machinery, the scattered crates, and the broken catwalks above. There, an overhead maintenance grid, thin metal beams stretching across the abandoned yard. It was risky, but it would give him the advantage. Humans had a strange ability to calculate risk, to use it when others shied away. He climbed swiftly, balancing on the beams, careful not to make a sound. Below, the girls were regrouping. Sierra hissed at the obstacles in their way, frustration sharp in her voice. Kylan tried to circle to find him, while Vera's tail flicked nervously, scanning the shadows. Jace stayed out of sight, watching them move. Their movements were predictable in their confidence. He could see the pattern, the way they relied on their speed and senses, assuming that their prey would follow a simple path. Humans did not. From above, he prepared his next move. The beams crossed over a pile of old machinery and crates, forming a natural trap. With careful timing, he nudged a loose panel, sending it sliding down. The noise drew the girls' attention immediately. They paused, trying to locate the source, just as Jace jumped to another beam, then another. Crates toppled, machinery clattered, and sparks flew from exposed wires. The girls lunged toward the sound, but he was already out of reach. Sierra's frustration boiled over. "He's impossible," she hissed, eyes narrowing. Kylan growled in agreement. "We've chased him for hours." How can one human be this clever? Vera's ears twitched. She had learned something important tonight. Humans were not prey. They were opponents, unpredictable, cunning, and surprisingly resilient. Jace's plan was simple: exhaustion and confusion. The girls were strong, but even strength falters when it is used inefficiently. He led them through a maze of broken corridors, over half-collapsed catwalks, and around pools of water reflecting the flickering neon lights. Every turn, every obstacle, every trap he created forced them to react rather than plan. They were hunting, but he controlled the battlefield. After what felt like hours, Jace reached the old factory entrance that led to the city's upper level. He climbed a stack of crates, reaching the top just as the first hints of sunlight bathed the streets in gold. From this vantage point, he could see the girls emerging from the tunnels below, still searching but moving more cautiously now. Fear and respect had replaced their initial confidence. They realized the human was not just fast or lucky, he was smart. He ran across the rooftops, moving with a fluid grace that only humans in tight situations could manage. Below, the alien girls attempted to follow, but struggled with the uneven terrain and gaps between buildings. Jace had used the tunnels to train his mind for this moment, and now he used the rooftops to showcase human adaptability. Every jump, every landing was calculated. Every misstep they made widened the gap between hunter and prey. Jace spotted an old communications tower in the distance, its rusted antennas bending against the wind. He had an idea. If he could reach it, he could create a final demonstration of human ingenuity. He sprinted toward it, leaping over narrow streets, sliding under low beams, and ducking behind chimneys. The girls were still chasing, but fatigue and confusion slowed them. Their previous arrogance had cost them precious energy. He reached the tower and began climbing. The metal was old, rusted in places, but solid enough to hold him. As he ascended, he saw the girls pause below, unsure how to continue. Sierra hissed at the others. "We can't follow him like this." Kylan shook her head. He's not like any human we've seen before." Vera's low growl told Jace everything he needed to know. They respected him, even if they would not admit it aloud. At the top of the tower, Jace found an old control panel connected to the city's emergency broadcast system. Sparks flew as he manipulated the levers and buttons, activating a series of lights and sounds that sent signals across the abandoned districts. Lights flashed, sirens wailed, and mechanical drones powered up in response. The chaos below was immediate. The girls froze, stunned by the sudden control he exerted over the environment. Jace looked down, catching their expressions from above, awe mixed with disbelief. The alien girls had come to hunt a human, expecting an easy victory, but instead they had encountered cleverness, adaptability, and strategy. Humans were underestimated, yes, but they were far from helpless. He climbed down carefully, using the tower's maintenance ladder to reach a nearby rooftop. From here, he could slip into the city unnoticed. The girls, still on the ground, hesitated, unsure how to continue. Their hunt had turned into a lesson. Humans survived not through strength alone, but through intelligence, courage, and quick thinking. As Jace moved across the rooftops, he glanced back once more. Sierra, Kylan, and Vera were regrouping, looking up at him with a mixture of frustration and newfound respect. For the first time, they saw humans differently, not as weak creatures to be hunted, but as beings capable of far more than they had imagined. Jace reached a familiar alley that led to a safe exit. He descended carefully, slipping into the shadows, the city opening before him. The sun rose fully now, casting long golden light across the streets. The alien girls watched from a distance, their hunt over for now. They had learned something important. Humans were unpredictable, clever, and impossible to underestimate. As he moved through the streets, Jace felt a quiet pride. He had survived, yes, but he had done more than that. He had shown that humans, even when alone and outnumbered, could adapt, overcome, and triumph. It was not just survival. It was a demonstration of humanity's potential, a reminder that intelligence, creativity, and courage could turn the tide even against seemingly superior forces. The city around him buzzed with life, unaware of the small human who had outsmarted 3 of its most skilled hunters. Jace did not boast or celebrate. He simply moved forward, alert and ready for whatever came next. Humans had been underestimated for too long, and tonight had proved that they were not just survivors. They were thinkers, strategists, and forces to be reckoned with. From the shadows, the alien girls watched him disappear into the distance. Their respect for him was silent but clear. They would not forget this night, nor the human who had turned the hunt into a lesson. Sierra finally spoke, her voice low and serious. "Humans, they are not what we expected." Kylan nodded, still catching her breath. "No. We underestimated them." Vera's growl softened into a thoughtful hum. "Next time we will remember." Jace continued on, slipping through the streets, blending with the early morning crowd. He had survived the hunt, proven his cleverness, and in a small but meaningful way changed the aliens' perception of humans. He had shown that humanity was not defined by strength alone, but by intelligence, courage, and the will to survive. As the sun climbed higher, the city came alive in earnest. Markets opened, ships rumbled in the distance, and the streets filled with the noises of daily life. Jace melted into the flow, unnoticed yet victorious. The aliens had learned something valuable, and he had proven that humans could be unpredictable, adaptable, and capable of outsmarting even the most skilled opponents. And so the human moved forward not as prey, but as a reminder. Humans were clever, humans were strong in their own way, and humans could survive, no matter what the universe threw at them. The city of Zorath, for all its dangers and shadows, had become a proving ground. And tonight, humanity had emerged not just alive, but triumphant in the quiet, intelligent way that humans always did. The alien girls would never forget, and neither would the human.